made the statement in his letter to Dr. Trustner. Is it not spiritual sensation? Is not the Bible addressed to that in man, which is all imagination? Well, I felt it, because years before that, I too stepped into an image. I became awake in the image. As Thoreau said, real living is to be in a dream awake. When one is in a dream, awake. Well, this is a dream, and then you wake in the dream, and the dream ceases to be a dream. It's just like this. If what I did was a dream, this here is just as much a dream. I'll show you. For that image simply became just like this room. But once before, I found myself in an image, and some object in that experience scared me. And I knew exactly how to get back to the sense of touch. And I tried a thing, and it worked. If I find myself dreaming now, and I know I'm dreaming, I may prolong the dream, or wake in the dream through the sense of touch. And I find if I hold an object that is not movable, I wouldn't hold a cat, or a dog, or even a person, but I will hold a stationary thing that is seemingly inanimate, like a table, or any inanimate fixed object. And when I hold it, I then say to myself, come on, wait, but don't let go. I will not let go of the object, and not letting it go, I wait. I wait in the image, and the object is just as real as I knew it would be when I awake. So what is dream to us? When you're in the dream itself, it isn't a dream. We speak of a dream when we wake from the dream as subjective. As we reflect upon the experience, we say, well, that was a subjective experience. But it wasn't subjective when you were dreaming. It was very objective to you, the dreamer. It's only subjective after the experience. Well, that's what he means by fourfold vision. I have fourfold vision, see, and a fourfold vision is given to me. It is fourfold in my supreme delight, and it is. For when you can sit quietly in a chair and leave behind you all the things of that day and step right into an entirely different world, and the world is just like this, real, and people. It's a sheer delight. Threefold vision is what you and I call upon to practice to bring about changes of state for those we love. So you meet a person and things aren't going well, all right? It doesn't really matter. He's only in a state. So you represent him to yourself as other than what he appears to be. Persuade yourself of the reality of that imaginal act. That's another state altogether relative to him. He will conform to it. And you will meet him the next day or the next week, next month, and you will see a change in his behavior. He will conform to this blending of images in your imagination, which union creates whatever the union implies, leading one to the conclusion that causation is simply the assemblage of mental states, which occurring creates that which the assemblage implies. So you assemble images. But what do they imply? Whatever they imply, they're going to create. So always see to it that it's going to create something lovely. For the images, when blending, if they are occurring, invariably creates what they are in implying. Anyone can do it, and you're invited to try it. That's what Blake taught. And from the time that he could breathe, he was teaching those that he met the difference between the individual and states, and begging man not to impute sin and righteousness to the individual, but to the state. He gets out of the state, and he leaves behind him all that state radiated. When he's in a state, it seems to be the only reality. When you're not in a state, it seems shadowy, a mere possibility, but not when you're in it. When you step into an image, and that image closes around you, it's real. I mean, altogether just like this room here now. And you can train yourself to step into these images and prove the being that you really are. You're not confined to the little body of five senses at all. You are a man all imagination. So when you say, what seems to be is, to those to whom it seems to be, and is productive of the most grateful consequences to those to whom it seems to be, even of despair and eternal death. But, said he, divine mercy steps beyond and redeems man in the body of Jesus. And so he steps right beyond and redeems us. We can go from state to state to state, but we cannot save ourselves. Salvation is initiated by God. It is not given to us for any good deeds done, I assure you. On the other hand, it's not given as due reward for merit. that I assure you. It is bestowed by grace alone, and we are told in the Scripture why. In virtue of his own mercy. Not because of anything I did, not because of anything you did. When you are salvaged from this world of states, the furnaces of affliction, bear in mind you didn't earn it. Not one being in the world can earn his own salvation, but it's going to be given to him by the mercy of God. And it's called in the Scripture grace, pure grace, unearned. No one can earn it. And Blake saw it so clearly and told us all, in spite of all these states, glorious states, you could be pure in your own mind's eye, you could be impure in the eyes of others, but whether you were just or wicked, it was not to him anything that you could brag about, because there were only states. You fell into a state and found yourself in a pure state, and thought yourself so pure. The state was, and you, the occupant, activated it. You animated it, and it became real to you, and maybe you liked it, and remained in that state. But you could easily fall into another state, a wicked state. And when you are in a state, you partake of the nature of that state, and you animate it and make it all alive. But you're neither wicked nor pure. You're just this immortal being, putting through the furnaces of affliction. And you pass through all these furnaces for a divine reason, to be made perfect as he is perfect. And when in his eye you are perfect, it brings you out of it. Divine mercy steps beyond and redeems man in the body of Jesus. And so all will be redeemed because you can't earn it. And Blake made it so clear. If you haven't read Jerusalem, what a thrill, what a treat in store for you. There are only 100 plates, and a plate doesn't even run a full page. And so you can really read it in an hour. Easily. Some words may be a little bit difficult to grasp, because he does involve it by calling a certain attribute loss. Well, loss is imagination. That divine being that remained faithful to vision in the time of trouble. If you turn it back, it's the sun. It really is the soul or the animating principle of everything in this world. And so when you see through his eyes, you will have the experience. I have met Blake. We are separated in time, but we are two figures closely woven in this tapestry of life. I met him just about a year ago, and he showed me exactly how to fall in order to see what he described so beautifully in Jerusalem. I stood perfectly still. He said, let yourself go, backwards. And so I threw myself backwards like a back dive. And I came whirling through interstellar space, as though I were a meteor. And when the motion was arrested, and I stood still, here I'm looking at the most wonderful being. And he seemed, as I looked at him, one being. As I came close, multitudes of nations are in that being. All races, all nations. As I look closer, their heart is like glowing ruby. But it too is made up of numberless races and nations. I look still closer, and the whole body, containing all races, I'm looking at myself. Here the face is my face, and yet in that one being, all the races, all the nations are contained. I'm looking right into my own face, and my heart is glowing like ruby, but it contains all men, all women. All these bodies are in it. And it was Blake who showed me how to fall backwards in order to see the vision. And so I tumbled backwards, just like some meteor whirling itself through space. And when arrested, that's what I saw. So although we are parted in time, he died in 1827, and I was born in 1905, so our paths never met on earth. But in the spirit, they certainly meet. And so his visions are my visions. When he said eternity exists, and all things in eternity, independent of creation, which was an act of mercy.